Welcome back. It appears the shared military and civilian rule will become a reality in Sudan after all. Over the weekend, the military council and main opposition agreed on a constitutional declaration which will pave the way for a new period of transitional government. The good news was shared by the African Union mediator, Mr. Hassan Lebat, on Saturday, but without any details.
The African Union mediator for Sudan, Mr. Hassan Lebat, said the military council and the main opposition coalition's agreement ushers in a new period of transitional government. The document, which outlines the powers and the relationships between the branches of the transitional government, comes after weeks of protracted negotiations brokered by the African Union and neighboring Ethiopia, amid sporadic bouts of violence in the capital Khartoum and other cities. Sudan has been engrossed in political turmoil since removing former dictator President Omar al-Bashir. News of the constitutional agreement was greeted with celebrations on the streets of the capital Khartoum. The new deal will usher in a period of transitional government by a sovereign council and set out powers and relationships between the different branches of its authority. An election is expected to hold in 3 years' time. Sudan's political progress has, however, been threatened by killing of protesters during presumably peaceful rallies that eventually turned violent. The more recent, the killing of 4 protesters in the city of Onduma on Thursday and injuring of many others. Violence and killings were also reported in the city of El Obeid. The military later informed that 9 soldiers from the Rapid Support Services have been dismissed and detained in connection with the violence. According to Lieutenant General Shams Eldin Kabashi, the governor of North Kordofan State and the Security Council will be held accountable for the killing of 6 people, including 4 school children in El Obeid. Power sharing between the military and civilian opposition is expected to last 39 months, during which time a sovereign council, a cabinet, and legislative body will be formed. Our general is expected to head the council for the first 21 months before civilian government for the remaining 18 months. The cabinet will be headed by the Prime Minister, who will be nominated by the pro-democracy movement, while the Ministers of Defense and Interior will be chosen by the military.
On Friday, the United States formally withdrew from a landmark missile pact with Russia. It said it had determined that Russia was in violation of the treaty, despite a denial by the Kremlin. 6 months ago, the U.S. had signaled it would pull out of the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, negotiated by then U.S. Presidents Ronald Reagan and Soviet Union leader Mikhail Gorbachev. The treaty banned both sides from stationing in Europe land-based missiles with a range of between 310 and 3,400 miles, reducing their ability to launch a nuclear strike at short notice. Needless to say, the news was not just disappointing, but concerning for the international community.
News of the U.S. withdrawal from the INF treaty kind of sent jitters across Russia. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, in his reactions, said the United States was actively looking for excuses to pull out of the international treaties that they signed before. All sectors in Russia are said to be highly concerned about this invalidation of the treaty by Washington. However, during an interview on Wednesday last week, Mr. Ryabkov said Russia will not rule out similar measures if the U.S. moved its banned missile closer to Russia, so as to balance the time it takes for the missiles to reach the other country. And that's while Russia and the United States have now agreed to suspend the deployment of similar missile systems near each other. Russia has noted that the US and its NATO allies took a very reckless approach to international security. He hopes the harsh realities will bring back to sanity those who trifle with European and global security. The UN Secretary-General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, also sounded a warning that the world would lose an invaluable break on nuclear war.
I am concerned about rising tensions between nuclear-armed states. The Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF, is a landmark agreement that helps stabilize Europe and end the Cold War. When it expires, the world will lose an invaluable break on nuclear war. And this will likely heighten, not reduce, the threat posed by ballistic missiles. Regardless of what transpires, the parties should avoid destabilizing developments and urgently seek agreement on a new common path for international arms control. And I strongly encourage the United States and the Russian Federation to extend the so-called New START agreement to provide stability and the time to negotiate future arms control measures. I am troubled by growing friction among the two largest global economies. We need to learn the lessons of the Cold War and avoid a new one. Looking into the not-so-distant future, I see the possibility of the emergence of two competing blocs, each with their own dominant currency, trade and financial rules, their own internet and artificial intelligence strategy, and their own contradictory geopolitical and military views. We still have time to avoid this.
NATO, on its part, has agreed ways to deter Russia from launching a new minimum-range missile capable of a nuclear strike on Europe, and that its response will be measured and only involve conventional weapons.
NATO will respond in a measured and responsible way to the significant risks posed by Russia's SSC-8 system. We have agreed a package of measures to ensure NATO's deterrence and defense remains credible and effective. But we will not rush to implementation or make any rash moves. Allies remain firmly committed to the preservation of effective international arms control, disarmament and non-proliferation. We will not mirror what Russia does. We don't want a new arms race. And we have no intention to deploy new land-based nuclear missiles in Europe. This is not a credible offer, because Russia has deployed missiles for years. So there is zero credibility in offering a moratorium on missiles they are already deploying. There are no new US missiles, no new NATO missiles in Europe, but there are more and more new Russian missiles. So to offer a moratorium is without any credibility.
Even China has sounded a note of warning via a commentary on radio, which said withdrawal from the deal was bound to weaken strategic mutual trust between the major powers, encourage another nuclear arms race, and raise the level of risk in the world security landscape. The commentary ended by noting that history has proven time and again that policies of confrontation and aggression don't work, and only by pursuing a cooperative and win-win solution will shared security be guaranteed for all of humanity.
This is our stop on the program this week. Do send us your questions and comments to @Amarachi_Ubani, @Diplomatic Chan, or @Channels TV. I am Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.